I stood behind the cash register at Murphy's corner store, counting nickels for the third time because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps. My shift ended in 20 minutes, and I needed every dollar from this paycheck to cover Mom's medication. The pneumonia was back, worse this time, and the hospital bills sat on our kitchen table like tombstones marking the death of any financial stability we'd ever had. A man in an expensive black coat walked in. He didn't browse. He walked straight to the counter and set down a pack of cigarettes. His eyes were cold, assessing. I rang him up. Dollars. He handed me $100 bill. I don't have change for this, I said, opening the register to show him mostly ones and fives. He stared at me. Not angry. Just waiting. The silence stretched until my throat felt tight. I can break it at the gas station next door if you wait 5 minutes. No need. He took the cigarettes and left the $100 bill on the counter. The door chimed as he walked out into the November rain. The next night he came back. Same coat, same cigarettes, same $100 bill. I had prepared this time. I'd exchanged my tips for 20s at the bank during lunch. I have change tonight, I said, reaching for the register. Keep it. He took the cigarettes and left. The third night, I refused to ring him up at all. Sir, I can't keep taking your money like this. It's not right. He set the cigarettes on the counter. His voice was quiet, flat. Ring it up. I'm serious. I appreciate it, but I can't accept. Ring up. Something in his tone made my stomach drop. This wasn't kindness anymore. It was a test. I rang up the cigarettes with trembling fingers. He left the 100. The door chimed. I stood there feeling like I just failed something important but didn't know what. The fourth night he didn't come alone. 3 men in dark suits entered Murphy's at exactly 11:47 p.m. The store was empty except for old Mr. Murphy restocking candy bars in aisle 2. The man in the black coat walked to the counter. Behind him, his companions spread out, blocking the door and the back exit. Last chance, he said. Ring it up. My hands moved automatically, muscle memory taking over. Dollars. He set down another 100. But this time, one of his men walked to the register, reached over, and took all the cash from the drawer. Not the 100. Everything else. $743 from the day's sales. Mr. Murphy rushed forward. Hey, what are you doing? That's. The man in the black coat raised one finger. Just one. Mr. Murphy stopped talking like someone had cut his voice box. She had 4 chances, the man said, looking at me, not Murphy. I never asked twice. I asked 4 times. They walked out. Police came. Mr. Murphy fired me on the spot. I sat in the police station at 2 a.m., wrapped in a shock blanket even though I wasn't cold. The detective taking my statement had kind eyes but a tired face. Can you describe them? Expensive suits. Professional. The leader had dark hair, maybe 40, spoke quietly. The detective's pen stopped moving. Did he have a scar here? He pointed to his left cheekbone. Yes. Mole one. How did you? That's Adrian Kozlov. The detective set down his pen and rubbed his face. You're lucky you're not dead. My stomach turned to ice. I knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. The Russian who ran half the docks, controlled the unions, and owned politicians like collectible cards. The man whose enemies disappeared so completely their families stopped asking questions. Why would someone like that rob a corner store? I whispered. The detective looked at me with something like pity. He didn't rob anything. He was teaching you something. 3 days later I found out what. My landlord knocked on my door at 6 a.m. I answered in my bathrobe, eyes still crusted with sleep. Your rent, he said. It's paid. 3 months advance. What? I didn't. Someone paid. Don't know who, don't care. He shoved a receipt at me and left. At the pharmacy, picking up Mom's medication, the pharmacist gave me a strange look. Your balance is 0. That's impossible. I owe you $1,100. She showed me her computer screen. Paid in full. Yesterday. Cash. I walked home in a daze. On our kitchen table, I found an envelope that hadn't been there when I left. Inside was a note written in precise block letters. You didn't hesitate when it mattered. 4 years ago. County Hospital. Emergency room. You chose action over safety. Remember. Now you understand. I never ask twice. But I never forget either. County Hospital. 4 years ago. The night that changed everything. The night I made a choice that still woke me up screaming sometimes. I was 19 then, working night shifts as a hospital janitor to pay for community college. It was just before midnight when I heard shouting from the emergency room. A man was bleeding, a bullet wound in his chest, 2 friends dragging him through the doors. The ER was understaffed. The nurse was with another critical patient. The bleeding man was dying. His friends were screaming at the nurse. She kept saying, I can't leave this patient. Call 911. But 911 was already there. That's where we were. The hospital. And this man was bleeding out on the floor. I dropped my mop. I grabbed gauze and towels from the supply closet. I had no medical training beyond a first aid course in high school. But I knew pressure stopped bleeding. I pressed my hands against his chest, feeling hot blood soak through the towels. His friends stopped yelling. They just watched. One of them was crying. Don't let go, the wounded man whispered. His eyes were the same cold gray I'd see years later across a store counter. Don't stop. I won't, I promised. And I didn't. Not for 18 minutes until the doctor arrived. Not when my arms are cramped. Not when I was covered in his blood. Not when I realized this man might be dangerous, might be criminal, might get me in trouble just by association. Chose action. I didn't hesitate. The doctor said later that pressure saved his life. Those 18 minutes were the difference between survival and death. The man I saved was Adrian Kozlov's younger brother. I learned this from the newspaper article I found tucked under my apartment door the morning after the rent payment. The article was 4 years old, yellowed, about a gang shooting that left 3 dead and 2 injured. One survivor was identified only as a Russian national, condition critical. Below the article, another note in those precise block letters. You were observed. Always. I looked out my window at the street below. A black sedan sat at the corner, the same spot it had been parked the last 3 days. I hadn't noticed before. Now I couldn't stop seeing it. How long had they been watching? How much did they know? My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. There's a car waiting downstairs. Kozlov's voice, unmistakable. It's time we spoke properly. I don't want any trouble. I'm grateful for the help, but I don't. The line went dead. Through my window, I watched the sedan's passenger door open. A man in a dark suit stepped out and looked directly up at my apartment. Had 2 choices. Refuse and insult a man who never asked twice. Or go and enter a world I'd spent my whole life avoiding. My hands were shaking again as I grabbed my coat. The sedan took me to a building I'd passed 1,000 times without really seeing. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary office building downtown. Glass and steel. Professional. Forgettable. Inside was different. The elevator required a keycard. The hallway on the 7th floor was too quiet, too empty. Security cameras tracked my every step. They led me to an office at the end of the hall. Large windows overlooking the city. Minimal furniture. Behind a desk sat Adrian Kozlov, looking exactly as dangerous as his reputation suggested. But what surprised me was the boy sitting in the corner. Maybe 8 years old. Dark hair, gray eyes. He was reading a book, completely still. Sit, Kozlov said. Sat. The boy glanced at me, then back at his book. My brother survived because of you, Kozlov said. He died anyway. 2 years later. Different shooting. But he had 2 more years because you acted without hesitation. I'm sorry for your loss. You didn't hesitate, he continued as if I hadn't spoken. Everyone else in that hospital hesitated. The security guard. the receptionist, 3 other staff members. Isa. They waited. They questioned. You acted. The boy in the corner turned a page. I've been watching you since that night, Kozlov said. Not constantly, but checking. I wanted to see if that moment was luck or character. I learned you were a character. He pulled out a folder. Inside were photos. Me leaving my apartment. Me at Murphy's. Me at the pharmacy. Me visiting mom at the care facility. You work 3 jobs. You care for your mother. You pay your debts on time even when it ruins you. You don't steal, don't cheat, don't make excuses. You see problems and you handle them. I just do what needs doing, I said quietly. Exactly. He closed the folder. Most people don't. Most people hesitate, reconsider, and look for easier options. You choose action. That's rare. That's valuable. The boy stood up and walked to the window. Kozlov's eyes followed him with something almost soft in his expression. This is my nephew, he said. His parents died last year. Car accident. Since then he doesn't speak. He doesn't play. He reads and he waits. Doctors say it's trauma. Fear of making wrong choices. Scared that any action might lead to more loss. I understood then why I was here. I don't need your money, I said. I appreciate what you did with the rent and the medical bills, but I can't. You'll work for me, Kozlov interrupted. Not optional. You're already involved. You saved my brother. Paid your debts. In my world that creates connections. Those connections make you a target. My blood went cold. A target for what? My enemies. They know I pay my debts. They'll assume you matter to me. Some will try to use you to get to me. Others will try to hurt you just to hurt me. You're safer inside my protection than outside it. That's insane. I'm nobody. You were nobody. Now you're someone I've publicly invested in. The corner store robbery. That was a message to my organization. I was teaching them the same lesson I taught you. Act decisively or face consequences. The boy at the window pressed his hand against the glass. His fingers were small, fragile-looking. I thought about how scary the world must seem when you're 8 and everyone you love disappears. What would I do? Yes. Take care of him. Kozlov nodded toward the boy. Live here. Keep him company. Teach him what you know. How to act without fear. They gave me a room on the 6th floor. It was bigger than my entire apartment. Private bathroom. City view. Closet full of clothes my size. Everything I owned fit in 2 trash bags, and it looked pathetic sitting on the king-sized bed. The boy's room was across the hall. I knocked. No answer. I opened the door slowly. He sat at a desk still reading. Same book as before. Hi, I said. I'm staying here now. Your uncle asked me to. He turned a page. Didn't look up. I know you don't talk much. That's okay. I'm not great at talking either. Still nothing. I noticed his bookshelf. All chapter books advanced for his age. One caught my eye. The Phantom Toll Booth. That's a good one. Finally he looked at me. Just a glance, but it was something. I read it when I was your age, I continued. The part where Milo has to choose which path to take, and both paths look scary. He stands there frozen. But then he realizes standing still is scarier than choosing wrong. The boy's hand stopped turning pages. Days passed in a strange routine. Kozlov left early, returned late. The boy, his name was Alexei, I learned from the housekeeper, spent hours in his room. I tried different approaches. Reading nearby, offering to play games, making simple comments about books or weather or food. He never responded directly, but he started leaving his door open. One morning, I found him in the kitchen staring at 2 cereal boxes. He'd been standing there for 10 minutes, according to the housekeeper. Can't decide. Yes. He looked at me with those serious gray eyes. The same eyes as his uncle. Old eyes in a young face. Both are good, I said. There's no wrong choice here. He didn't move. I poured myself cornflakes. Them slowly. Let him watch. When I finished, I stood to leave. His small voice stopped me. What if I choose wrong? It was the first time I'd heard him speak. His voice was hoarse and used. I knelt down to his level. Then you choose a different tomorrow. That's the secret. Most choices aren't permanent. You get to try again. Not all choices, he whispered. You're right, I said. Some choices can't be undone. But staying frozen, not choosing at all, that's permanent too. That's choosing to stop living. Alexei looked at the cereal boxes. His hand hovered between them. Finally he grabbed the chocolate puffs, poured a bowl, sat at the table. His hands shook slightly as he lifted the spoon. Good choice, I said. How do you know? Because you made it. That makes it good. Over the following weeks, I watched him slowly return to the world. Small things. Choosing which book to read. Deciding whether to wear the blue shirt or the red one. Picking a movie for the evening. Each choice was a tiny victory over the fear that had paralyzed him. I told him about the hospital. About choosing to help even when I was scared. About how action felt better than waiting even when action might be wrong. He listened with an intensity that reminded me of his uncle. That same focus. That same ability to absorb information and calculate its value. One evening, Kozlov came home early. He found us in the living room playing chess. Alexei was actually winning. Kozlov watched from the doorway. When the game ended, Alexei checked me with a move I didn't see coming. His uncle smiled. It transformed his face. Made him look younger, less dangerous. You're good for him, Kozlov said later after Alexei went to bed. We sat in his office. The city lights spread below us like fallen stars. He's a good kid. Just scared. You weren't scared. That night in the hospital. I was terrified, I admitted. I just didn't let terror stop me. Kozlov poured 2 glasses of vodka. Slid one across the desk. My father taught me that hesitation is death. In our world, the man who pauses is the man who dies. I built my reputation on that principle. I never ask twice. I never give second chances. Create certainty. People know where they stand. He drank his vodka in one swallow. But watching Alexei these months, seeing him paralyzed by that same principle, I wonder if I taught him fear instead of strength. You taught him the consequences are real, I said. That's not wrong. But maybe consequences don't have to mean endings. Sometimes they just mean changes. Kozlov looked at me with something I hadn't seen before. Not respect exactly. Recognition. Like he was seeing someone from his own species after years of living among strangers. 3 years ago, I made a decision, he said. A business partner betrayed me. Small betrayal. He skimmed money, not much. I could have talked to him. Warned him. But I followed my rule. No second chances. I had him killed. The vodka burned in my throat. I set down my glass carefully. 2 weeks later I learned the truth. He hadn't betrayed me. His accountant had. The partner was innocent. By then it was too late. His children lost their father because I wouldn't pause. Wouldn't verify. Wouldn't ask twice. Why are you telling me this? Because you're teaching my nephew that choices aren't final. That mistakes can be learned from. I need to know if you believe that applies to men like me too. Thought about it. Really thought. In the silence, I heard the city humming 7 floors below. All those people making choices, big and small. Some good, some bad. Most are just trying their best. I think, I said slowly, there's a difference between not asking twice and not listening once. Kozlov went very still. The test came 2 weeks later. I was reading with Alexei when Kozlov burst into the apartment. 3 of his men followed, all talking at once in Russian. Kozlov's face was stone, but his eyes were fury barely contained. Gregor betrayed us, one man said in English for my benefit. He sold information about the shipment. Feds seized everything. Where is he? Kozlov's voice was dead. We have him. Warehouse. Waiting for your order. I watched Kozlov's hand curl into a fist. Watched him take 1 breath, 2 breaths. Then he stood. I'll handle this. Alexei grabbed my arm. His face was pale. He knew what handle this meant in his uncle's world. Uncle, Alexei said. His voice was small but clear. Did you ask him why? Kozlov stopped. Turned. What? Did you ask Gregor why he did it? Maybe there's a reason. Maybe someone forced him. There's no reason good enough for betrayal. But maybe if you knew the reason you'd understand, Alexei insisted. Maybe it's like cereal boxes. Sometimes what looks like a bad choice is just a scary choice. The room went silent. Kozlov's men shifted uncomfortably. In their world, an 8-year-old didn't question orders, didn't suggest alternative approaches, didn't compare life and death decisions to breakfast cereal. Kozlov looked at his nephew, then at me. You taught him this. I taught him to think before acting, I said quietly. There's a difference between decisive action and reckless action. You know that. In my world, thinking gets you killed. In your world, not thinking got an innocent man killed 3 years ago. The words hung in the air. Kozlov's men looked like they wanted to disappear. You didn't remind Adrian Kozlov of his mistakes. You didn't question his judgment. You definitely didn't do it in front of witnesses. Kozlov's jaw tightened. For a moment I thought he might have me removed. Permanently. Then he exhaled slowly. Come with me, he said. Both of you. Uncle, I don't want to see. Alexei started. You won't see anything. You'll listen. Both of you will listen. The warehouse was exactly what I expected. Concrete floors. Metal rafters. A man tied to a chair in the center. Face bloodied, breathing shallow. Gregor, I assumed. Kozlov's men stood guard at every exit. Everyone out, Kozlov ordered. Except you two. He pointed at me and Alexei. When the warehouse emptied, Kozlov approached the tied man. Gregor, you have one chance to explain. Not because I'm merciful. Because my nephew asked me to listen. Gregor lifted his head. Tears cut tracks through the blood on his face. They have my daughter. The FBI. They arrested her on drug charges. Planted evidence. Said they'd make it go away if I cooperated. You could have come to me, Kozlov said coldly. I did. 3 times. Your assistant said you were too busy. Said to handle it myself. So I handled it. Kozlov went very still. He pulled out his phone. Made a call. Spoke rapid Russian. Hung up. His face revealed nothing, but I saw his hand trembling slightly. He tried to reach me, Kozlov said quietly. Security logs confirm it. My assistant turned him away. Kozlov untied Gregor personally. Handed him a handkerchief for the blood. Your daughter will be home by morning. The charges will disappear. The agents who arrested her will face consequences. You have my word. Gregor collapsed sobbing. Thank you. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank my nephew. He saved your life tonight. Kozlov turned to Alexei. You were right. I should have listened. Back in the car, Alexei was quiet. I held his hand. It was shaking. I'm sorry you had to see that, Kozlov said. I'm glad I did, Alexei replied. 'Cause now I know. Sometimes slowing down is braver than speeding up. Kozlov met my eyes in the rearview mirror. Something had shifted. Some fundamental equation had been rewritten. I built my reputation on never asking twice, he said. Maybe it's time I built it on always listening once. The city passed outside our windows. Lights and shadows. Choices and consequences. The distance between them suddenly didn't seem so absolute. The next morning, Kozlov called a meeting. His entire inner circle. 20 men who'd followed him for years, who knew his rules, who'd built their own reputations on his principle of absolute decisiveness. New policy, he announced. Before any permanent action, I want verification. 2 sources minimum. 24-hour waiting period for decisions that can't be undone. The men shifted. One spoke up. "Boss, that's not how we work. Hesitation shows weakness." I didn't hesitate. I said, "Verify. There's a difference." Kozlov's voice was steel. "We're not changing speed. We're changing accuracy. I will still never ask twice. But I will listen once. Properly." Another man. "The other families will see this as softness. Let them. When we move, we'll move with certainty. No more Gregor situations. No more innocent deaths. Our reputation becomes stronger, not weaker. We become the organization that acts decisively and correctly." I watched from the doorway. Watched these dangerous men process a fundamental shift in their operating philosophy. Some nodded slowly. Others looked uncertain. But none argued. Kozlov's authority was absolute, even when redirecting itself. Weeks passed. Kozlov's new approach was tested repeatedly. Rival organizations pushed boundaries, seeing if the changes meant weakness. They learned otherwise. When Kozlov moved, he moved with devastating precision. But now his actions were based on verified intelligence, careful assessment, and strategic patience. His reputation evolved. People stopped whispering about him, never asking twice. Started talking about him never being wrong. The distinction mattered. One evening he called me to his office. "I've been thinking about our arrangement. You came here because I made it necessary. Kept you here because I decided you belonged. That's not fair." "I understand my role," I said. "I'm asking what you want. Not telling you what you'll do. Asking." The word hung between us. Asking. Not commanding. Not deciding for me. "I want to stay," I said. "Not because I have to. 'Cause Alexei needs me. Because what we're building here matters." Kozlov nodded. "Your mother's medical expenses. I'll continue covering them. Not as payment. As a family responsibility. You're part of this household now. That means your family is my family. There are conditions," he continued. "You're connected to me now. That creates risk. You'll have security. You'll follow protocols. You'll be trained in self-defense. Not because I expect trouble, but because I prepare for it. I understand. If you want to leave, you can. I won't stop you. But once you leave, the protection leaves with you. You'll be on your own. Vulnerable. I'm not leaving." He studied me for a long moment. "Why not?" "Most people would run from this life. Because 4 years ago I chose action over safety. That choice brought me here. Walking away would mean that choice meant nothing. I'd rather be here in danger, knowing I matter, than out there, safe, wondering if I wasted that moment." Something like respect crossed his face. "You understand. Most people don't. They think safety is the opposite of danger. It's not. It's the opposite of significance. Your brother understood that," I said. "The night he was shot. He asked me not to let go. He didn't ask me to be careful or protect myself. He asked me to commit. He was brave. So are you." Months turned to a year. Alexei transformed completely. The silent, frozen boy became confident, decisive, curious. He asked questions constantly. Made choices without paralyzing fear. Laughed, played, lived. I watched Kozlov watch his nephew, and I saw something beautiful. Saw a dangerous man remember how to hope. How to believe in futures instead of just surviving presents. One night, explosions rocked the building. Car bomb in the parking garage. Kozlov's enemies hadn't disappeared. They'd just been planning. Alexei and I followed the emergency protocol. Safe room. Reinforced door. Panic button pressed. We sat in the dark, hearing chaos outside. Alexei's hand found mine. "Are we going to die?" he asked. Not panicking. Just asking. "I don't know," I admitted. "But we chose to be here. That matters." "Why does it matter?" "Because we could have chosen differently. Could have run. Could have hidden. But we stayed. That means whatever happens next, we face it instead of avoiding it." He was quiet. Then, "I'm glad I chose to stay." "Me too, kid." The attack was repelled. Kozlov's security was thorough. When the safe room door opened hours later, he stood there, covered in soot, face grim but alive. "Everyone's safe," he said. "They failed." Alexei ran to him. Kozlov caught him, held him close. Over his nephew's head he met my eyes. "Thank you for keeping him calm." "He kept himself calm," I said. "He's not afraid anymore." Later, alone, Kozlov told me the truth. "They're getting bolder. These attacks will continue. I can't promise absolute safety. I never asked for absolute safety. Just honest danger." He almost smiled. "You're strange. You've mentioned that before. I mean it as a compliment. Most people want comfortable lies. You prefer the uncomfortable truth." "My mother's dying," I said quietly. "Has been for years. Doctors can't fix it. Money can't fix it. All I can do is be present. Face it honestly. Spend the time we have left without pretending it's not ending." Kozlov nodded slowly, understanding without needing more words. 3 years after that first night at Murphy's corner store, I stood on Kozlov's balcony watching the sun rise over the city. Alexei was 11 now, tall for his age, smart, kind, decisive without being reckless. He'd started calling me by my name instead of formal titles. Started treating me like family instead of staff. Below, the city woke up. Millions of people are making choices. Some good, some bad. Most are just trying their best. And somewhere in those buildings, Adrian Kozlov's reputation continued evolving. The man who never asked twice. The man who always listened once. The man whose word was law, but whose law was just. Mom passed away that winter. Peaceful. Surrounded by family. Kozlov attended the funeral. Stood in the back, respectful, quiet. Afterward, he placed a hand on my shoulder. Didn't speak. I didn't need to. I had chosen action over safety 4 years ago. That choice had led me here. To a family I'd never expected. To a purpose I'd never imagined. To a life that was dangerous and uncertain and absolutely, completely real. The legend of Adrian Kozlov continued growing. But I knew the truth behind the legend. I knew the man who questioned himself, who learned from mistakes, who loved his nephew enough to change fundamental principles. And I knew I'd choose the same path again, every time, without hesitation, because some choices, even when they lead you into danger, are worth making. Some legends are worth living inside. And some families are worth finding, even when they find you first.